Syracuse Landmark Preservation Board meeting of March 28th. I'd like to call it to order. Present at this meeting are
Howard.
Nicole Fragnito.
Kyle Gregory.
Julia Marshall,
Jeff Romano.
Hillary Donahue. Cynthia Carter.
Mayor Hertzberg, Corporation Counsel's Office.
And Kate Auwater, staff to the board.
thank you. First order of business is to approve the minutes from the meeting, last meeting. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of March 7th? So moved. Is there a second? You the second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? No. Okay. Any comments? I know
Any
you have
corrections?
one.
Corrections.
Well,
to-
I just wanted to add for the record for
Yeah.
the South Springs Road Umcrest, the original architect I just put in there so it's documented, Gordon Wright.
Okay.
Other than that, terrific.
Everybody good?
Yep.
Okay. The board will now conduct a public hearing on today's agenda. First, the applicant or applicant's representative will be invited to describe the proposed scope of work and to present any material or documentation regarding the proposal to the board. Next, persons wishing to speak in favor of the proposal will be given the opportunity to address the board. Then persons who wish to speak in opposition will be allowed to address the board. Finally, the applicant or representative will be given the opportunity to make closing comments to the board. Following each public hearing, the board may vote to approve, approve with conditions, or deny the application just heard. The board may also decide to hold its decision to the next hearing. If the hearing is closed, no additional information will be allowed into record except for the information that the board may request. The information will be available for public review with board staff. Kate will now introduce the first application.
Yeah, this is CA-2406, which is a certificate of appropriateness for 115 Green Street. You'll remember there was a previous application earlier this year that was withdrawn that included a ramp and a sign. This is a resubmission for the sign only. Without any further ado, if you're, yeah.
Can you please introduce yourself for record?
My name's Michelle Scully, and I'm the owner of 115 Green Street. We are hoping to open a coffee shop there, so we're just applying to get the signage for the front. The plan is, what I would like to do is to put a colonial post sign in the garden bed out front, right here, beside the lamp post so that it would naturally illuminate the sign. And the location was chosen to increase visibility of the sign and the business to passerbys on the sidewalk and on the road. So the height of the post was chosen to work in concert with the lamp post that's already there. And the arm is gonna come out about 40 inches. And the sign itself will be round. It'll have our logo on it. It'll be black and white. Double-sided, and it'll hang from the colonial post.
Can you describe the material of said sign and post, please?
Yeah, it'll be I've talked to different sign companies, but it's called a metal blade sign. So it'll be engraved on either aluminum or another metal product, depending on the company we go with.
I'm not clear on the orientation when you say it's going to be adjacent to the light so it can illuminate it. Will it be parallel to the house frontage and the road, or will it be perpendicular?
It'll be positioned slightly, like the post coming up will be positioned slightly behind the lamp post. I don't know if can you pull up my application?
Yeah, actually, if you switch through.
If you touch screen.
If you touch screen and swipe up, or you can do, or you can do that too. There you go.
Based on the drawing, it appears to be perpendicular to the road.
Perpendicular to the road so that it can be clearly seen.
We need to ask for, you need to close it.
Oh,
Close the-
anyone in opposed to this? You have ability to correct? Oh, is anyone in favor? Anyone opposed? I will close the meeting. Public comment. Call for a vote? No? Oh, discussion, sorry. It's been a while. Any discussion?
I'll start, I guess. This application is far better than the previous submission. We have an owner that actually heard us and listened to us. So we thank you for that, or I thank you for that as a board member. The metal signpost and sign are, I feel, are appropriate for the installation in the historic district. And to take it one step further, they removed the ramp. I don't know if anyone's been by there, but thank you for respecting the historic district and removing the ramp in the inappropriate location. So I applaud you for that. So the location's good, the size is fine, material's fine. I have no issue with it. I think it's a good application.
Any other comments, discussion? I'll take a vote. All in favor?
You need a motion.
Make a motion. I'll make a motion. All in
Oh,
favor?
no, you need
You
to
asked.
ask for
Oh.
a motion, yeah.
May I have a motion? Too early. in the morning. You want to state it so she,
I'll make a motion to approve.
anyone seconds?
I do.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? All opposed? Anyone opposed? Motion passed. I know, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck with the coffee shop. It's okay.
Kate, do you want to?
Okay. So you ready to,
I'm ready.
to move on to?
Yes.
So we have no old business, and we'll move now on to new business. This is a major site plan review, 2406 for the Chimes Building, which is 550 South Salina Street. The building is a contributing structure within the South Salina Street Downtown Historic District. Anthony Rojas is here from In Architects to present the project.
Good morning, everyone. Anthony Rojas, Principal of In Architects, presenting 500 South Salina Street this morning, Chimes Building, which was constructed in 1929. It's an existing 12-story building located at the intersection of South Salina and Onondaga Street. It's a steel-framed building structure encased in either clay tile or concrete as it goes up. The existing conditions are very close to what you see in the image here. The east, northeast, and the northwest facades, so the primary street presence, are made of a cast stone exterior panel. The remaining facades facing the parking lot and towards Clinton Street are of a brick material. So there's 2 different finishes on the 5 different facades on the exterior. The original storefronts on the lower level along the first floor have all been, the original storefronts were all removed and replaced with more modern aluminum storefront and glass and EIFS material for everything below the second floor. The building was, originally described as being modestly Art Deco. It's not overly ornate in its features, and unfortunately, not much actually remains on the interior of the structure. And what you see on the exterior, we will be restoring as much of the original character of the building and upgrading as it currently exists. We are currently in the SHPO process. We've gotten our Part 1 approvals, and we'll be submitting our Part 2 submission in the next couple of weeks as we wrap up our design development project. The building is approximately 150,000 square feet. We intend to redevelop it into a mixed-use project. We have a couple of existing commercial tenants, telecommunication tenants that will be remaining in the building, occupying space in the basement and on the second floor. On the first floor, we'll be redeveloping the space into new commercial tenants with a new entrance lobby for the main building as you go up. And then the remaining floors will be filled with 152 mixed income residential units, ranging from studio all the way up to 3-bedroom units, offering a good variety of residential options responding to the community need in this area. From a site perspective, we're currently in the process of filing for brownfield tax credits. So really the extent of the site work is up in the air depending on which track we approach. But there will be site upgrades. The intent is to remove any of the soil condition issues that exist. We just need to really understand how deep we're going in the extent of those removals. Some of the existing site landscaped elements, the trees all along Onondaga Street, we really don't know if those will be impacted and have to be replaced. We're doing soil testing right now to really understand what needs to happen with those. The parking entrance right now is currently on Salina Street. We are proposing to relocate that new entrance back to North Clinton Street. We think the ingress and egress of that location is much better for the volume of traffic that occurs on North Salina Street. So for all of our residents that'll be occupying that, utilizing the parking lot, it'll be much easier for them to approach from that street. In this historic photo, you'll notice that the entrance lobby, that was its original location. It's not where it currently is, but our intent is to relocate the new building entrance lobby on Onondaga Street to bring back a lot of the historic nature and what it was originally, bringing our lobby back to there, opening up the corner for a commercial tenant entrance as it historically was and original to the building. Here you'll notice some of the proposed renderings for the ground floor upgrades that are happening on the exterior. Our intent is to bring back some of the cast stone elements that were on the ground floor in strategic locations, one being the primary intersection right at the corner, and at the end pier. All of the remaining infill will be new storefront, aluminum storefront and panels that again bring back the original delineation without bringing back all of the filigree and the ornateness. So giving a nod to history, the profiles of this aluminum storefront, which is in line and in keeping with its historic nature and what it used to look like, but bringing back more, obviously traditional materials. We are going to establish a clear delineation above that first floor, and with this cast stone masonry, have a distinct color difference from the original cast stone that's up on the floor to make sure that there is an understanding of everything below this datum is new construction and not confuse, the historic nature of the original cast stone that happens up above. Bringing back a storefront entrance at the corner is our intent here. There may need to be a couple of steps up to that platform as the level of the floor on the interior is higher than the grade at this intersection, but there would be handicap accessibility from the Salina Street side into this tenant. We just thought that this is a strong location and where we really want to bring presence to a corner commercial tenant. And then this would be the proposed location for the new building entrance and lobby off of Onondaga Street, bringing back the stone portal that used to be there. Used to be proud of the other elements and create this portal entrance and trying to maximize the amount of daylighting into that space. Again, bringing back more of that historic context and proportion to what used to exist. The rest would, again, be infilled with maximizing the amount of glazing, which historically was the character of the ground floor space. The panels up above, the black, dark panels, we're looking at a couple of different options of how we're gonna treat a lot of those louvers that were put into the slotted, panels beneath the windows. Option A is obviously leaving them, refinishing the panel. Option B would be removing them and infilling that panel again with a fluted section. They are steel panels up there, so we could weld them back into place. So we're pricing out a couple of different options and still don't know the approach. But once we establish that, we'll be submitting the Part 2 for approval. And I believe that's all the primary elements that we can mention. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
How close are you to the submittal of Part 2?
Right now we're trying to hit middle of April, so second or third week of April. A few weeks away.
Those decisions on the facade treatment are close.
We're waiting for our DD level estimate, construction estimate, to come back, which is due next week. And then shortly after that, we'll evaluate all options and then make a decision.
It's a site plan review.
That's correct. So this is for comment. The board's role is to comment for zoning.
No, I understand that. It's site plan review, so the changes that you're making to the site is primarily the ingress and egress to the parking.
From a site perspective in the parking lot, it's ingress and egress to Clinton Street. We're also, I guess the storefront. The existing storefront location and the way it was recessed, currently, bringing that delineation out, the building line on the ground floor, that's gonna change. A lot of the area underneath this corner is currently recessed and it's under cover of the first floor. So we're gonna bring those storefront sections outwards. So it's not gonna be proud of the property line or anything, it's not encroaching, but that will change kind of the pedestrian, feel of that storefront delineation.
But it's within your property line, so.
Yes, yes.
Other comments? Any comment? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, look like you're changing the fencing to the existing fencing in your renderings?
The existing fencing will remain. The screened enclosure in the renderings are really just to screen mechanical equipment on the ground and dumpster enclosures.
Okay.
So those may wrap around and you may have that presence along Onondaga Street, but that'll be secondary to the existing railing
fencing.
remaining. Correct.
Okay.
I think the question that is brought up is, when will we have the opportunity to really comment on the building? Because right now, this is
Oh, no,
just site.
this is the bill. So this is very similar to project site review. And
So it's
so
not just site?
it's not just the site, no, it's you may comment on the building, absolutely, yeah.
I do have a question then regarding the facade and perhaps changing out those existing grills. The existing grills on the facade are within a cast stone panel. So what you're suggesting is that perhaps the whole panel will be removed, or you're covering it with a metal panel?
So in the cast stone sections, we're pricing out a couple of options. One is removing the vents and recasting taking another existing panel with the correct filigree, recasting a new section of that infill and infilling the existing cast stone area that the vent is currently located in. Option B would be replacing the entire panel and recasting the entire cast stone piece. So we're pricing out a couple of different options. But we have two conditions, as you mentioned. There's the vented in the cast stone sections, but then there's also the vented in the black slotted sections underneath the windows. Those are actually, there's no cast stone under those sections. That's a fluted steel panel that's painted black, and those were replaced years ago. Yeah.
So if I understand her correctly, you're proposing to change out those metal panels,
Pricing out a couple of
Pricing
options.
out.
Yeah.
and the vents that are in the cast stone panel are,
We're either removing them and inserting a cast infill to a partial stone or the entire cast stone within those sections.
Oh, go ahead.
I was
I
just,
just have one question about the ADA. Is that going to be the front entrance there on the corner? You mentioned there'll be a couple of steps up. Is that going to be a ramp or something for, I know there's a backside, you mentioned an elevator.
So the corner tenant on the ground floor will have steps right at the corner, but around the side on Salina Street, there'll be a secondary entrance that allows for accessibility into that common commercial tenant.
So that front entrance is going to be, it's not a vestibule or entrance, it's actually a tenant.
It'll be a tenant. The corner will be a tenant.
Yeah, straight ahead.
The new lobby entrance to get up for the residents will be relocated to the Onondaga Street side where this portal is. We're reconstructing that portal. So we've done some investigatory demolition to see if there was any remaining character behind the EFIS material, and there really isn't anything. All of that was torn out, infilled with new CMU block. So none of that is beneath which we were hoping something could have been buried, but nothing remains. All of the ground floor tenants will have entrances off of the street. They will not be entered from the main lobby area. The main lobby will be entrance into the residents and the commercial tenants of the second floor or above.
Yeah, you mentioned that that front entrance would have a couple of steps. They're going in here, they should still be able to access the tenant.
it looks like
This
the,
corner tenant will have steps up in the corner, and then on grade on Salina Street, there'll be a side entrance off of this here into that corner. Yep. This entrance over here will just be in and up to the second floor.
Another question, because it's hard to tell from the existing building, the plane of the glazing on the first floor, and right now I know that the glazing is set quite a bit inward, recessed. What are you proposing in terms of, is it coming back out to the face of the building, or is there going to be a recess of some sort?
So the exterior of our storefront is going to come out to the exterior of our masonry up above. Historically, you actually used to be proud, almost like a condition at the State Tower building, where it was proud of it. We don't want to create those water conditions. So
Okay.
we're going to bring the storefront to align with the exterior of the masonry above, which aligns with our foundation wall as well. And then the sections that create kind of that nod to the filigree of those extrusions will just be an extruded metal panel that'll give you those profiles that will be proud of the aluminum storefront section, if that makes sense.
So the glazing actually is in line with the masonry above, but slightly recessed from what you have on the ground floor?
Yes. You won't be seeing the column enclosures, kind of those pier looks from the exterior. Historically, you never saw those columns. They were behind the storefront element. So now the storefront will bypass those columns. You won't see them anymore. They'll be behind, spandrel panels. So it'll change that kind of in and out, but we're going much closer to what it historically was.
I was just going to say, first of all, thank you for the attention you're putting to this building. I know this building very well, and it desperately needs this, so thank you for that. I did have a couple of questions also. So the lower level where you are infilling above those windows, you say that's going to be, the elevations say spandrel panel, but it's cast stone? So the area above this here, below the existing masonry there, but it's flagged as spandrel. Okay, that's what I wanted to confirm. It's going to be like a cementitious cast stone material, which I think you said to be
Pull that
darker.
picture up so everybody understands what you're referencing.
It was sheet 302 towards the end of the submission.
So there's a note that points to these panels up above the storefront beneath the datum, but these new panels here that was mislabeled as a spandrel panel. It's not spandrel. It'll either be a cementitious panel or metal panel or some other large-scale panel. We actually threw out a proposal to actually make that all cast stone too. It's getting priced out. We doubt it's going to go in that direction, but we're looking at a couple of different materials there, but it's definitely not spandrel.
I didn't know if you're trying to like emulate a structural glass panel or something like
The only section that there will be spandrel is right in front of the column section. So this darker glass section here will be a spandrel panel so that you don't see the column behind it. But that's the only spandrel glass.
I guess from my point of view, it would be nice to see cast stone
I agree.
on the,
I agree.
Something
on the ground
solid.
floor.
So
and-
we're
and not
pricing
see and not see a metal panel.
I was just gonna go there, if you had any historic imagery of those storefronts, and how close are we in this concept to that historic image?
I'm sorry, repeat that again?
Your storefronts that you are presenting, the conceptual image here, how close are those to historic accuracy?
They're very close. So we took the proportions, kind of the secondary transom glass that's up above, the way it's kind of divided and the number of lights, the amount of ups and downs that you kind of see here that in the form of it is very close to the proportion and the frequency and number of how that
So the
used to be.
articulation that you're showing, not as detailed as you've said, but to pick up that flavor of what was there.
Right.
Then again, back to the dark panels over the supporting columns, is there a way we can eliminate that so the column stands out so you can see the structure and read the structure and the vertical element that it creates?
The structure will be boxed in anyway, so you'll really just be seeing, I guess, solid box enclosure.
Yeah, just, you've got,
section here?
yeah, each section is covered with the spandrel glass, you're saying?
Yes.
Is there a way to let that masonry stand out and be
There's no
read as a
masonry.
vertical element?
It won't be there won't be a masonry enclosure for those. It'll be a boxed, fire rated, 2-hour enclosure around those steel columns, so it'll be just a gyp painted finish on the interior.
Wait, new columns? Or?
No, the ones where he's showing behind that section, those were always inboard of the glazing, right?
They were always inboard historically. I doubt they used spandrel panel. I'm sure it was a clear glass, so you could have seen the column on the interior. But because the column is so close to the glass and just from a finish maintenance visibility standpoint, we proposed spandrel.
Thank you. And then the doors that you'll be putting in on the Onondaga Street side, are those close to resembling what was there?
As far as we can tell, it was difficult to actually get a very close image of what that lobby entrance used to be, but we just extended the character that we saw that kind of wrapped around the remaining area. We didn't really find a straight-on shot of that entrance piece. It was all just kind of askewed.
Yeah, it's kind of tough to read off of the postcard image. I wonder if you
Yeah.
found any other images at OHA or something that.
Everything was basically always taken from the corner, and it was very difficult to find anything else. Yeah.
There's got to be some pictures out there from the old Greyhound building across the street that would have captured that frontage. But, okay, all right, thank you. It looks good.
The only other comment is in terms of the color of the glazing, because based on that, I'm seeing the spandrel has a color.
It's extra blue. Yeah, it won't be as prominent as what the rendering's showing. We're going to try to go as clear as possible with the energy, requirements that make sense for the interior of the space.
So each of the storefront windows glazing is clear. Okay, and then the spandrel will have some sort of blue color?
We haven't selected an actual color finish yet, but I don't think it's going to be blue, no.
Guess I would like to know what that is.
We can submit a material sample
Okay.
if you'd like.
I think the board would probably like to know what that is.
Sure.
And the sconces are all new?
New, correct.
Okay.
There's no exterior sconce lighting right now. Yep.
Any other?
Just
Looks good.
Fantastic.
Are you doing anything with the existing windows, or they're just leaving them in place? And
So we have a couple of options with the windows as well. Option one is keep all of the existing, add storm windows, and option two would be the addition towards the rear, towards the parking lot. There was an old addition that kind of squared off the building. Those windows all the way up, and then the windows on 8th and 9th were replaced to aluminum windows. So they removed the historic windows on 8 and 9. So we're looking at replacing those back into matching the profiles of the remaining windows with a new aluminum window, but they used a square traditional kind of section back then.
They're all, I think the existing ones are all steel.
Right. Right.
Okay, my other question would be the roof deck. I wasn't quite clear because I don't recall having been up on that roof, but what the elevation you'd be going at with the roof, and then the railing, the height of that railing, and how close it is to the parapet. Have you guys looked at the visibility of that from down Salina or Onondaga?
Yes, so over the next couple weeks, we're going to put up temporary fencing and taking the photos from a few blocks away to really see the impact of that new vertical railing section. We can submit, those will be part of the Part 2 submission. We can submit those to you so you can see those as well. We'll also be locating, there's a new rooftop piece of equipment on the south side of our building. So we'll delineate that as well, and you'll see photos from the ground for that.
And that'll be located behind, like directly behind the penthouse?
Yes,
Or-
right,
okay.
directly to the south side of the penthouse. We actually didn't touch on the penthouse, so the panels that are currently up there, we partially removed some for exploratory reasons. All the cast stone masonry is in beautiful condition up there, so all of that will be exposed, re-exposed. A lot of the equipment that you see on the exterior of the penthouse is now no longer being used, so whichever equipment is not being used, any antennas or things like that, all of that will be removed if it's not being used. The historic windows are also still intact underneath there, so we're really going to evaluate the condition and, leave those remaining as well. There may be a couple of windows that get removed for venting and air intake for our mechanical equipment instead of cutting or doing anything else anywhere. We'd rather take out a few sections of windows and slot those and vent those to draw air instead of affecting the cast stone masonry, so.
Are you leaving the existing facade perimeter lighting in place? Are you moving
So the lighting, we're removing the lighting along the upper edge, and we'd prefer to uplight the building. So in that new datum that we created on the second floor, dividing the first and the second floor, we are proposing to channel and enclose uplights that will wash the building all the way up to the parapet. And we're only going to be lighting the sections in between the windows, so the cast stone masonry sections, as well as the penthouse. So you won't see any glaring light beaming down at you when you look up to the building, which destroys every photo you've ever seen of Chimes anyway.
Right.
The last question I have is, on the rooftop, if you're adding rooftop units up top, will they be in an enclosure? And how, I guess I want to know if we're going to see them, depending on, from down Salina Street.
So the large unit towards the south side will be 10 feet tall. So that single unit you will see, and that's why we're going to delineate that so that you can see how much of it you do see from grade. The remaining units you won't see at all. They're either small or not necessary. They'll be located on the ground in the parking lot.
It's 10 feet high, how big is it in width? Because some of those units,
Like 20 feet long, probably.
20 feet long, 10 feet high, so it's considerable. Are you thinking about putting up some sort of enclosure? Because some of those units, it depends on the sight lines.
Yes,
down the street.
depending on the sight line. We'll take a look at it. You don't, in any of the historic photos you see that have been taken, you don't see the first floor windows of the penthouse. It's usually the second floor of the penthouse. So we're hoping that once we locate it and delineate how high that really is, hoping it's not going to impact unless you're really in Clinton Square, no, not Clinton Square, but as far as Clinton Square is to our building, you may see something, but more to that once we delineate.
And then you're suggesting a rail?
We're doing a railing for
guardrail
for-
around the entire perimeter?
No, right now we're just guard railing the rooftop patio section, which will be offset from the edge of parapet, or it'll be set back. Right now, the question is how much of a roof patio will we have? If we expand to the max size that we show in our drawings, we'll have to extend the second staircase up on the back end because only one of the stairs on the east side of the building actually make it up to the roof. So option A is 740 square feet of a rooftop patio with single stair and new passenger elevator from 12 to roof. Option B is extending the stair to maximize the amount of usable area.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any persons?
Oh, no, this isn't a public hearing. So it's just comment. So,
Okay, any comments?
any further comment?
Any further comments?
When did this start?
We are targeting end of construction documents in about 3.5 months, and that'll then go into permitting, and full bidding will happen right at that same time as well, so soon.
Great project.
Great project, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Do you want me to? Okay. So the next item is actually under a couple items we have, but the first one is under discussion, and that is in regard to Warren Street Garage, and we have a couple folks here to talk about that. Yeah, absolutely. Come and sit.
Morning. How's it going? Sure. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move this chair over for Jake.
Yeah. So, yeah, so this is, well, Eric, I'll let you introduce
Yeah, well-
yourself and Jake.
Okay, all right, that sounds great. Well, good morning. Just want to say thank you for allowing us some time to be an item for discussion on the agenda, and it's my first time speaking before the Landmark Preservation Board, but I'll introduce myself and then I'll let Jake do the same. Eric Ennis, so I serve part of the City of Syracuse's team with the Department of Neighborhood and Business Development, so I serve as Deputy Commissioner of Business Development, particularly with NBD.
Hi, good morning. Jake Dishaw, Deputy Commissioner of Code Enforcement and Zoning Administration. So I oversee, all building permitting, housing, construction, zoning, licensing, et cetera.
So, Kate, should I just, and no, that's all right. Do you want me to?
So bright.
Should I just kind of kick it off in terms of, so one of the things that we wanted, just an opportunity to talk to the LPB about and discuss is just a garage property located within downtown Syracuse known as the Warren Street Garage. And this is, if you may be familiar with it, located on the 300 block of South Warren Street, is one of the oldest garage properties within the city and within the urban core. And one of the things that we've been having discussions about, particularly Jake, myself, and with Kate, has really been around just continuing to look at the condition of that property and really looking at just the future, right? As we look at the ongoing revitalization within downtown Syracuse, thinking about the highest and best use of both Warren Street, but also downtown as a whole, we've continued to see the garage falling into further and further into disrepair. I'm gonna, in a moment, turn it over to Jake as we continue to just look at, there's been analysis and assessments done, there's been information that we've had the chance to review as well as inspections that have taken place on the garage. And as well, as we, and particularly in my role, as we continue to have conversations with the development community, this is a very attractive site as we look at the opportunity for redevelopment as a whole within downtown. One of the things that we do know just from understanding and really in terms of process and procedure, I'll really let Kate and Myra speak to, but we understand that because of the historical status of the garage itself, our Landmark Preservation Board will be part of any future investment, use, and any activity that happens on this site. And so one of the things that we have been finding through both our analysis, the information that we're seeing, as well as just conversations with the development community, is that this is becoming a more and more of a difficult site to try and adapt the current structure. And the fact that the economics of being able to salvage and rehabilitate the garage are becoming so tremendously challenging that an opportunity potentially to consider demolition as one avenue to actually infill, create new development and new construction, but really giving thought to what's the appropriate way to do that for the Warren Street corridor and for downtown. So this is, it's really conceptual, but one of the things we just wanted to do was really get a sense and be able to answer questions and have a dialogue with the Preservation Board about just initial thoughts as we continue to look at what is going to be the highest and best use for the site and for downtown as a whole. And the other thing is wearing a couple different hats here this morning. I also serve as the executive director of the Industrial Development Agency, or SIDA. SIDA actually owns the 3 tax parcels that make up Emblem Park immediately to the north. SIDA has a long-standing history with the park itself, which has been a green space within that corner of Warren and Fayette. However, the site is immediately adjacent to the garage, and so one of the things that we've also been thinking about is that as we look at what is the future of the garage itself, we also want to be thinking about what is the future of Emlem Park as a site as well. So that was just, I wanted to kind of lay some of that groundwork as we're thinking about what opportunities could exist there. But Jake, do you want to, I think Jake was just going to speak more to what we've seen with the garage itself.
Yeah, I'm sure most of you have seen it either in the media or personally walking by. Last year, we made the decision to clear out the entire garage and barricade entrance of vehicles. So officially, there is a unsafe, unfit declaration on that structure. Right now, we have not declared an imminent danger as far as, imminent collapse. So there hasn't been an emergency declaration put on it for demolition. But that could happen at any time, potentially. I don't think it's a question of if, I think it's a question of when that structure comes down. And I think that's why Eric and I are kind of before you today is, it would behoove the city and everybody to kind of consider how to move forward, with that property, with that structure, before an emergency happens, before, the fire chief and I have to say, this has to come down tomorrow or right now, and we're scrambling to, get a demolition down. So we kind of wanted to get before you and, get that out there that, it could be, nobody can really say how long this structure will last, but it's reached its lifespan is kind of where it's at. And we continue to evaluate it. We're not letting any vehicles in. Right now, the lower level where you pull into the north overhead garage door is still open. But, we continue to evaluate even if we want to allow that to continue. So it's largely vacant. There's nobody in there, or there shouldn't be anybody in there. But we've also received private letters from engineers, people that we've had guests park in there, guests of the city from out of town that have reached out to our office, wondering, how this is, well, they're professional engineers. I don't know, they're in town but we've received those in our office. But most recently, we received a letter too from an engineer who recommends, demolition now. Obviously, my responsibility to the city and to our constituents, to our citizens, is to protect their health, their well-being. So I look at it that way. Right now, the fire chief and I have not declared an emergency. So it remains shuttered, though, and closed, and the unsafe, unfit declaration remains per New York State code. But, this is just going to continue to worsen. It's an old structure. Obviously, our elements here in the Northeast don't help. A concrete structure like that with vehicles pulling in with salt, and the design of how that was constructed originally. So, as Eric noted, like the feasibility to kind of keep that structure going as a parking garage is near impossible, I think.
Can we pull it up on the screen so we can?
Oh, yeah.
Don't mean to interrupt, but.
No, and while Kate's doing that, I think just to speak a little bit to just the timing of this conversation, we are routinely and regularly monitoring the condition of the garage itself, but also through discussions with the current owner, there's been a lack of financial wherewithal and financial means to be able to do the necessary upkeep structurally to maintain it, right? And this has been several years in the making of that disrepair. But we also know the development community this is a site where there is significant opportunity, and we've heard from different developers where there is interest in doing that. So one of the things that as time goes on, and I think as Jake has said, is that this will continue to fall into disrepair, an opportunity to be thinking now about what is that highest and best use, and knowing that the Landmark Preservation Board will be part of that process, so.
Well, I guess I'd like to ask the question, it will displace a number of parking spaces, obviously. Well, I know it already has. How many parking spaces, and what is the thinking in terms of if you're looking to redevelop this site, and you would be taking the site over from the owner, I'm assuming eminent domain?
I think so. Well, I will say this: we are at this point in time, it's not, eminent domain is not, it is certainly like there is the capability, the city has the authority to enter into that. That is not at this point what is being discussed. I think we have the SOSITA theoretically as an agency of the city has the site control of the park. I think what we would prefer to see, and I think that we obviously have a current owner that does not have the financial means, but being able to transfer and ideally someone with the financial means to take over that site, I think that would certainly be our preference. But with regards to the number of parking spaces, now as Jake alluded to, this is a 5-level garage. Now 4.5 of those levels are currently vacant. So unfortunately, for the better part of 2 years, I believe that you have not been able to park in that garage. Now, and there's, there is a small portion. Now we're thinking, and this would be one of the opportunities as we're having discussions and would look at how could that garage better be utilized? What's the opportunity for the future of the park? Thinking about the overall need for parking downtown. And I think the other thing is, the developments, fortunately through the zoning process and the new zoning code in MX5 in this district, you do not have parking minimum requirements any longer. I view that as a tremendous positive, and Jake directly leads that process with zoning. So as we're looking at future highest and best use, the development can be thinking about their actual parking needs and not simply what the zoning ordinance is telling them that they need. So yeah, but I think that with any redevelopment or any use of the site, the parking impacts of that need to be considered. So.
Yeah, the one item I forgot to mention is garages in New York State have to be part of a program with the municipality they're located in, for oversight. The city of Syracuse actually had a garage program prior to the state implementing it statewide. So this garage had a professional engineer who was basically oversaw, the maintenance, the plans for it moving forward. That engineer has sent in written notification that he's no longer overseeing that garage. So that's a major concern that I have, because that means it's just the owner and, the city looking at this. There's no official engineer who's responsible for anything taking place with that, whether it's somebody that's in there or what should be happening. So it's a major concern, and it's rare that it happens, but I certainly always think about, I don't want to be on national news for something collapsing in the middle of the night, and all these questions coming into how did we reach this point. So that's really drastic to say that, but nationally it's happened in the state of New York as well. So that's a concern that I have.
Well, yeah.
Money garage collapsed.
Money garage.
So we're all here in the 90s.
And so I think the conversation is really meant to also help facilitate, how and where we look at an opportunity for redevelopment. I will say procedurally and process, I will defer to the experts, but I think what we are just trying to think through in a scenario where we have the garage pulled up behind me.
Yeah,
so I think, because as we're just thinking through scenarios, and I think an opportunity to talk about scenarios, we have yet to really, as we've evaluated it, as we've talked to the development community, we have yet to talk to someone or find someone who has the expertise to think that this garage can be salvaged. More of the conversation has been around demolition, clearance, but then new development and infill, and not leaving this as vacant land. But in that scenario, procedurally, that would have to come before the Landmark Preservation Board for a demolition permit to be issued.
Yep. So do you want me to tell you what the procedure would be anyway for, short of an emergency demolition? If there was a proposal to demolish this project, either individually or as part of a larger project, there would be an application for demolition of a historic resource. This is on the National Register as part of the expanded South Salina Street Historic District. And so the board would then have the opportunity to consider whether or not it should be put into the local protected site review process. And that would be the board's prerogative to decide whether or not to do that. That would be based on the information that would be provided to you, based on the condition of the building, the financial the financials related to actually trying to repair the thing. But it would be your prerogative to decide whether or not it goes into that process. And for those of you new board members who haven't gone through the local landmarking, what would happen would then, if the board, well, the board would hold if you decided it would go into that process, there would be a public hearing, and then it either would end there based on the information that was provided, or you would send your recommendation on to the Planning Commission and then finally to the Common Council. So.
We've done this a lot in the past. It doesn't mean we're saying no to the demolition. We just want to account for all the historic evidence that we can gather to make that sound judgment. We've had plenty of buildings in the past in which we've done this process, which were demolished at the end of at the end of the story. They were demolished and site redeveloped, but that's just part of the process that we partake in.
So basically, we kind of decide if it's a faster demo process. Is that too
Necessarily.
And that whether or not they're,
There's enough historic evidence to consider it eligible for local protected designation.
that's really the question is if given all the information that you have, is this a building that deserves local designation?
If the building is
I mean, and then,
So the LPB would have stronger requirements on said property for redevelopment purposes.
so protecting the site.
that, let's see, how can I put this? The LPB will have, no matter whether or not it's designated or not, the LPB
district.
will be, it's within the district, and the LPB will be a very much part of a redevelopment, of the
either
redevelopment
way,
and discussion, independent of whether or not it is a local protected site, or whether or not that designation actually moves forward.
You know, outside of that, you know, obviously, I'm not involved with that decision, but I think from a high level, the best way I would put it is that would just delay the inevitable that this building is going to have to be demolished. And, you know, maybe it's next year an emergency is declared, and then basically at that point, like, it comes down.
We're not saying that.
Yeah, no,
We're
I
just-
understand.
We want to document our history.
Well, that's why I think we're presenting about the condition of this, because trying to get some thoughts on what are the, you know, historic features, what would maybe be considered moving forward as part of this structure, how it stands now, and what something new, if something new went there, what are those features that would need to be considered? But you know, just trying
In the
to.
district, we would have comment on that. for
Sure.
Any new infill that would go in.
And we
Since it's in the
certainly want to
structure.
document what's there. I mean, you do have documentation from engineering drawings, but, you know, just looking at the signage, you'd want to be documenting, and where does that signage go? Because that's a piece of, you know, historic fabric that you'd want to keep in one way or another, especially moving forward in terms of a developer.
In an ideal scenario, as you know, again, in the market conditions where this site does become more and more of an opportunity, it would be as if the city were to receive a demolition permit, there would also be information tagged and tied onto that with what the redevelopment will be, so that that's something the Landmark Preservation Board can also consider at the same time that there's a potential request to demolish. And so that's also where I think that some of that comment and feedback would also be very helpful. But yes, I think in the meantime, documenting and as much information about the structure as we have, that's one of the things that's already taking place, but that's certainly information that we can share with the board.
A couple of questions. It sounds like the city is trying to be more, get ahead of this whole thing. So our responsibility, our insight into this, and I think we've mentioned a few things as to documentation and so forth. At what point should we expect the city to present some things? Because they're concerned about this building and the future of it and so forth. So how can we best serve the city in this request from a documentation standpoint? Is that what we're looking for, or a presentation to be able to help them move forward on this if they can't find someone from a repair standpoint or so forth? I'm just trying to grab, kind of grasp my whole thought around this whole process of how we can help them move forward on this, because obviously they're anxious about this building.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, do you want to go? You can go first.
No, I
if you
appreciate
like.
the question. I mean, I think just as Jake and I sit here today, and as I think just the city's goal is we want to make sure we have all parking garages in the city are safe, but also as we look at one that we know has fallen into severe disrepair, is that we want to be able to find a long-term solution for it. And I think as part of it, as I've had discussions, Jake's been a part of discussions, it is at all of the conversations we're having about what the long-term use of the site is it involves demolition and clearance of the structure. However, as the site is looked at as a potential opportunity, one of the big discussions has been, well, what would happen in a scenario where there was a request brought before the Landmark Preservation Board? Now, theoretically, if it was under no circumstances is there an openness to demolition, I think that would send a signal that would make it harder for the development community to look at long-term use of the site if the garage needed to be retained. Now, I think what we wanted to just confirm is that understanding there's a lot of ifs in this scenario, but if there is an openness of the Landmark Preservation Board to consider demolition as one of the options for the site, that I think just, it helps send the signal for anyone looking at redeveloping this property, because of the fact that we're finding it is such a challenge. It's been insurmountable based on the folks we've talked to about being able to salvage and rehabilitate what's there. Does that make sense? I think we just wanted to get a sense and have a dialogue about kind of initial reaction and thoughts as we talk about these scenarios.
I guess my first reaction would be, I don't think as a board we can say that demolition is not on the table. We have to consider all aspects of it. Would you agree?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So I would say what would be helpful is if we know this property is in question. I think the Landmark Preservation Board generally knows what type of documentation you would be looking for to understand the history of it, what are the elements, the key design elements of this that that should be called out. Understanding the physical condition of it. We've talked around what the engineer's reports are and so forth, and being able to provide that information. I think the more information that the board can have up front will help when it comes to that final time when there is actually a decision to be made of which direction it go, whether the board decides that the condition of the building is such that it has lost its historic integrity sufficiently that it needs that it should not go into into the local protected site, or what is the package of information that you would need to see to be able to make that determination.
Right.
Yeah, when it comes before you. And it seems to me it's images, it's the history of it, it's understanding the conditions, the current condition of the property, and then maybe calling out or pulling out some of the design features of it that that wide sweeping canopy and the parking sign, maybe some of that.
And the actual structure.
Yeah.
In
And the
terms
what?
of the
The
structure, the
The
actual structural system that was designed at
Structural
that
system,
time.
too. Yep.
One more point as to why I'm a part of this right now is operationally. I think of this. I'm not really sure how much the board has to consider this, but it's the facts. Is if we do declare an emergency demolition, if we have to, the city's on the hook to pay for that. We don't have the money right now to pay for that. We'd have to bond for it, knowing what we know about the current owner, not sure what we would recover from that. That's a huge difference versus somebody that, you know, might be able to, you know, present a plan that, you know, the board could be on board with moving forward. But again, I'm not necessarily sure that's something that you have to consider, but it's certainly something on my mind. If we have to take a structure down like that, how much is it going to cost and how are we going to pay for it?
So it sounds like they'll be coming back as they get more information on the condition of the place for us to consider, because we can't say, hey, you need this amount of information and so forth. So we just have to review and comment each time they would come back with the information.
I think that's basic, I think that's where we are at this,
Yeah.
at this
We're
point.
gonna look at it through the Secretary of Interior standards, right? So that's our document guide of how we're gonna proceed with any information that's provided to us, with any proposal that's provided to us on this property. We would look at the existing structure and rate it under our guidelines, right? And we would say it's eligible or ineligible. That's part of the process. We're not a clearinghouse to say, can we demolish this building or not? We don't do that. We rate its historic authenticity based on the standards that are provided by the state. So.
This could help from a documentation standpoint.
Right.
So
for them.
whatever is submitted, this is our rating system, right? So is
Well,
a unique
won't call it a
structure.
rating
Well, I'm sorry.
Don't call it a
but
rating
rating
system.
these are the
It's a
guidelines
guideline.
of how we make an informed decision. Thank you. So, you know, is it a unique structure that was designed in 1954? You know, what gives it its emblematic design to be incorporated in a historic district? So, I'm not sure to what year South Salina Historic District extends to, but obviously this falls into the purview. So it's included for a reason at this point. So let's let the developer, let the team do the digging, do the research, bring the information to us, and then using our guide, we can make that informed decision on how to move forward.
I guess the last thing I'll say, in addition to the architectural and engineering drawings, site plan of the area in terms of the site development over time, when this building was built, and what happened around it in terms of, you're talking about the park redevelopment and so forth, so all of those factors.
What came down for that parking garage, you know, what's our.
Well, that really wouldn't affect us what came down for the parking garage, it's really what happened from the parking garage forward.
And this is very helpful for us. I think it's just, we want to be able to initiate and begin this dialogue, and we'll continue to coordinate and work alongside Kate as information is able to be compiled and as we have more clarity on what the vision of the site could be, and that's information that would come back and be presented to you all.
Welcome.
All right, thanks.
Okay, all right, well, thank you again.
The garage has quite a history. Snowflake Bakery used to be in that garage. Really? Yeah, there was a little storefront. Well, my husband used to park in that garage for his office downtown, and there was a little bakery, so we always found bakery bags in the car.
Yeah,
Satellite bakery.
there used to be commercial tenants all the way up
Right,
on the
right.
ground floor. Okay.
There are examples of, and it's not applicable in the sense because this garage is old and deteriorating and so forth, but there are examples in major cities of building parking garages and then building parks at the top that are magnificent.
Next, I just wanted to make sure you all knew about the statewide preservation conference, which is coming up in a couple weeks.
Registered.
You are registered, and that as CLG members, members of the CLG, you can get a scholarship, so you don't have to pay for the registration.
Only going for Tuesday, but it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
And Monday, yeah,
But
yeah.
the core of it is on Tuesday.
Yep.
There's lots of meet and greets on Monday.
Yeah. If you do get the scholarship, you actually do have to go on Monday to get the CLG training. But the meat of the program is on Tuesday, and they have a really interesting speaker coming for the keynote.
It's worthwhile. I mean, I got the scholarship a couple of years ago, and the speakers are great.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not too far away. Memorial Art Gallery, so I encourage everyone to go to that. And then the only other thing is we wanted to schedule another training, and I had suggested to Mira that we do it after the next meeting, which is April 18th. Are you
Yeah,
here?
I'm still here.
You're here? Okay.
And I apologize, I was off this morning. But could we write on here, because I actually assumed that the site plan review for the Chimes Building was a public hearing because it's titled public. I just, no, it's not.
It's under new business,
Yeah, I know, but
Oh, okay.
She read it as a whole
I read
thing.
it as
as an entire
an
thing.
entire
Okay,
public
yeah.
hearing, so I just need to know.
Okay, yeah, no.
My mistake.
I will make sure that's clear, and especially in my introductions too, so.
I don't know if this is matter, but the new business, that building probably is not constructed in 1929.
It can't be because the postcard was 1920. But I wasn't gonna.
Yeah.
Oh, did I say that? Was that
No, it was
my,
on their stuff.
oh, it was on their stuff? Okay.
Yeah, probably just a
Anthony
change of.
opened with, it was built in
1929.
1929.
Oh, okay.
And the postcard says 1920, but
Yeah, but there's
there are
also-
postcards that can be just
The one-
imagery, so I didn't bring it up,
There's-
but we probably should.
Yeah.
There's an image of Hanover Square that shows on-bank building. It says 1890, which that's a fallacy.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they're out there, so I didn't take offense to that.
No, I mean, that's what I'm saying, is we just need to
Yeah.
clarify what the date of the building
Yeah.
actually is. But I didn't want to put him on the spot for that.
So the training then would be directly after our meeting, and we'll carry on. We'll talk about what the content for that, and yeah, that's all I have.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Say, okay.
Second
All
that.
in favor? Thank you. Aye.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.
Okay.